First off, thank you for joining our webinar today, which is entitled How to Innovate Your Business Model. I'm Patrick Glazier. I chair McKinley Advisors Research and Insights team and our business transformation team. And I'm joined here by my colleague Mina Dayak, who is a practice director with us, and also one of our partners who ran our business model accelerator that we'll be talking to you a little bit about and sharing some insights from. Today is all about helping you to think through how to innovate your business model. It's one of the big topics that we find ourselves really sharing a lot of insight about, in particular in the last several years. Associations have gotten more interested in this and we're serious about doing it. And today we're going to share not just some thoughts and some ideas about how you can do that, but also some experiences that we've had the benefit of learning through running this program. So now, just to give you a little bit of background, McKinley Advisors does run a business model accelerator, which is a high impact cohort-based experience. It involves getting associations together that are fairly similar. So they share the same kinds of challenges and really helping them to carve out the time and the space to take a deep look at their own business model, where it might need to be improved or optimized, where the opportunity is, maybe where there are some places that are challenges where they're getting snagged, and to do that in a structured way. So we bring these folks together. They're in their staff teams, but they also have the benefit of other participants from other associations. And collectively, we work to solve problems and make those business models stronger, whether that's developing a new product idea or maybe it's tweaking something about their internal operations or you name it. By the way, I will say that when we talk about new business models, it's really interesting uh, kind of terminology that we've certainly heard more of since COVID, I would say, hit us all. And one of the experiences that I think we have collectively had is just the number of change that, or the number of things that have changed during that time from of course, the technology changes and the inflation and the workforce burnout kinds of challenges. All of these things feel very common now, and they continue to pop up for us. So I think implicit in that is this understanding that where before, maybe 2015, 2010, as associations, we were always interested in evolving. Now the world is moving so fast, we realize we need a slightly more structured process to really keep pace. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to carve out that time to really focus on things like your business model, even when you're dealing with the sort of day-to-day battles of normal work. Now, when we ran this business model accelerator, one of the first things we did was we challenged our participants to really take a look at their business model as it stood at that moment. And in particular, what are the challenges? Why would they think about innovating, or what's the need to do that? I mean, change is hard. You got to come up with really good ideas. You got to get people over on your side to support those ideas. And then you actually need to execute on them, which involves any number of skills. Why would we put ourselves through that? Well, there would have to be some good reasons. And ordinarily, when I have a slide that has a bunch of bullets on it, I'm tempted to not hit every single one of them. But this really is every point on this slide is really nuggets of gold that came from our conversations, and I think will feel probably pretty familiar to each of you. Number one, the three-legged stool which is membership dues, pubs, and events, is under structural pressure. So those same areas that we have tended to rely on for many years, each one of those has been eroding at least slightly. So we find new ways of, or new forms of competition hitting us in each of those areas, new expectations among people that are digesting those kinds of products. We are finding in any number of ways that our perspective needs to shift on how the market wants to be met, and that traditional three-legged stool, first of all, isn't very diversified. And second, even the things that have tended to keep us afloat feel like they're wilting away a little bit right now. So is it time then to take a look at the sum total of what we're doing and see if it's really fit for the way that our market, our stakeholders need us to meet them today? Strong reserves. So some associations, of course, are in a position of not having a lot of reserves, and they're thinking about, well, we need to innovate in order to give us more financial sustainability. But it might surprise you that others have quite a lot of reserves, and even that can be a barrier. When you have a lot of padding, it allows you to sort of uh, take a cautious approach, knowing that you have something in the tank in case in case that three-legged stool gets pulled out from underneath you. So in either case, we're finding a lack of urgency. And association professionals, like all of us, are very aware of those things when they're doing their day-to-day work. Membership models are under scrutiny. We know this, where membership is going and whether it is something people still want, and if so, of course, which is what we believe, that what's the best way to form that membership. And then we're going to get into a couple of things here that you all will know very personally as association professionals. One, when you're doing as many things as you are, when you're working for an organization that has many different things that it needs to do and areas of focus from a mission it needs to deliver on to all these different products and services, it's really hard to do all of that and find time to innovate and be agile enough to try new ideas. With that, usually the things that prevent us from doing it are cultural types of barriers, whether that is at a leadership level or oftentimes among staff. We're so busy, we have our programs, there's just a lot you have to work through. And then finally, what I'll share is the what we would oftentimes call an even over decision. We have built collectively as organizations many very impressive programs, and there's only so much you can do in one day at one time. I would argue there's only so much your market can know you for. So as you've continued to create value for all of your stakeholders and doing all these different things, adding new things isn't the most appealing thing to do at any given time. When you add something new, it takes resources away. So oftentimes that tough choice of we're going to do this even over this other thing is a really difficult decision to make, especially when there's multiple stakeholders involved. Last thing is innovation requires significant mind shifts. It's risk, it's tolerance for risk. It's seeing business as a process of doing a lot of different things and failing at a lot of different things. It's being having an understanding that that's how it's gonna work, and we're gonna talk about those things and celebrate them internally, as well as you know the nuance of how you actually do it. So when you come up with an idea, what is the right way to bring that to market so that you don't overcook it, so that you're learning from the market and then you're continually growing and testing it. It's just a different kind of mindset to be in when you might be in a different mode of operating on a day-to-day basis. Okay. I would love to hear from each of you, and please use the chat function just to type in what pressures, opportunities are driving your need to innovate and rethink your business model. What got you here today to this webinar? What's on your mind when you think about your business model and why you want to innovate? So I'll give you a minute. Seeing a couple of familiar comments that I hear a lot of from clients, from industry consolidation to for-profit competitors. You know, it's really interesting because for-profit competitors typically are doing one thing. Even if they're a multi-conglomerate like a Procter and Gamble, they have these divisions and they're doing one thing, which is innovating on their product constantly, getting it to a new level where associations are doing so many things. So as that evolution is going on outside of our association walls, it's creating a shift in expectations for what our stuff looks like, right? Networking used to just be in person, but then LinkedIn came around. So now we have to kind of respond to that. That's a very common reason for us taking a step back and looking at our business models. Declining event participation, membership going down, a need to grow, volunteer, all of these things are very common in what we were hearing as well. Keep them coming. This is great. Okay. So in addition to learning a little bit about, you know, what are the challenges with the existing business model, we also talked in that early time period when we were just beginning our accelerator with our participants. What is the motivation to participate and or to evolve your business model? And there was a couple of um, insights that I thought were worth bringing to our conversation today. Uh, One of which is simply that, our legacy models, the way that we have traditionally thought about ourselves as associations, feel as though they are misaligned to many of us, not to all of us. In some cases, it works really well. But for many of us, this three-legged stool that I talked about before, just the way we think about delivering education, the meaning of membership, all of those things feel at least slightly misaligned to where people are today, to where the newer, younger generation wants to be. And so we just fundamentally realize it's time, with all of this change happening, to take a fresh look, new eyes at what the market actually needs and respond to that, as opposed to maybe a little bit more micro evolutions here and there. Second, the need to focus on broader ecosystems. So I think that there's a couple of things going on here, and please add to the chat and tell me if you agree with me or disagree. Both are great. Uh, there is the opportunity to think about adjacent markets, the term that we use a lot, to think about groups that are close to the ones that you serve and have similar needs, just because you can repurpose things that you're already doing. And you can sell to that market. So you're not putting more stress on dues. You're creating non-dues revenue, and that's great. But I think another thing that's happening, and this is one that I wanted to name with this, is simply that with AI and technology and all of the change we're seeing in our economy, we're also to a point where like some of the stuff is blending together. We can't quite look out and predict where a profession is going to be in 10 or 15 years. And so it's caused us to take a step back and even rethink, who are we serving? And do we need to reevaluate that? So that's something. And then the last one is innovation needs to be a way of being, not a thing that is done once. I would say this is probably one of the most important learnings that I've had over the past whatever number of years as I've started to really engage in what does it mean to be an innovative association. And that's, it's not about doing coming up with one great idea. There's got to be a whole cycle that supports your innovation. And it's a cultural thing in the way that you, like I mentioned before, talk about risk and failure. It's a process thing. So you don't want to create a bunch of new things and then not evaluate how they're doing, know when they're successful, and then eventually know when to sunset them. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I know many of you have wanted to sunset programs for a while, but culturally, it's challenging. But those are a big part of innovation. You can't expect to be innovative without acknowledging those and other elements, which we'll talk about today. So I want to share a model, and then we'll get into some of the specifics about how you can think about innovating in your own association. A little bit of a cheat sheet. If you weren't going to participate in a three workshop session with the Business Model Accelerator or a more concise session, this is the next best option to hear from Mina and I today on some of these points. This one right here is a framework. So what do I mean when I say framework? Usually when we talk about the business model with other association professionals, and when I say we, I mean any of you. When you go up at a conference and you talk about a business model, what you're going to hear is, oh yeah, you mean the products that we're offering. Or you might hear, you mean our strategy to be successful in the marketplace. These are kind of expressions in terms of art that we've thrown around, but haven't had a really good definition for. And probably the most grounded definition that we've used has been in the for-profit sector. But if you look at a for-profit definition of a business model, something that's geared to help you understand where are the different areas that I should be paying attention to make sure that I'm financially strong, it doesn't really fit associations. It's much more geared towards that for-profit context. So this on the screen right here is a model for associations specifically. We built it by doing lit reviews of all of the the industry literature on membership and products and all of those different things from associations to isolate the five core areas that if you are paying significant attention to these five areas, if you are innovating in these five areas and they are working for you, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. And that's all this is. One of them is revenue, and it gets to, sure, do you have revenue coming in? Is it strong enough? But really, how is that revenue being balanced and achieved? Is it coming through your dues? Most associations, it actually is. We talk about the three-legged stool. It's much more of like this one really strong leg, the dues, which is around 50% for a lot of associations, and then the other two legs. So revenue-wise, are you too dependent on one source? It even gets to how that revenue is collected. Are you still sitting in a place where you know your market wants, let's say, a subscription service, because those are really popular, but your technology doesn't allow for that? All those kinds of questions are in your revenue model. Next, community. It's one of the and the strongest competitive advantages that any one of you has. Even today, when you are up against for-profit competitors and you are coming out with a product, and a for-profit competitor is coming up with a product, your market will go to you because you have a community and you represent them. And so we really need to leverage this and make it a part of the other things that we do, particularly as the world changes. And some of the more traditional things, needs that people have are being met by AI. Community is going to be a strong element of lasting, durable value for associations. And that's something that we can talk about. Your reach is your marketplace. Who are you considering to be your stakeholders? And that's something we need to evaluate and reevaluate as the world turns. And there is this kind of consolidation of fields and change in roles. Operations is a huge one. This has everything to do from process. I'll ask you just to think really quickly about your own association. Do you feel as though the staff within your organization, if they had a good idea that they wanted to try out, are they supported to do that? Do they know who to go to get resources, to get it approved, to form a team, to get it from A to Z, to get investments in it? Most associations, I think the answer would be no. Again, it's because we're not really built that way. We're built for a mission. And so part of what Mina and I are talking to you today about is building in a little bit more of that sentiment. And operations is a big part of where you do that. And the last thing is value, last but not least, and that's truly the value that you are providing to your marketplace. Without that, none of the other stuff works, whether that's through your membership construct or if it's the other things that you're working on. Um, this is a cheat sheet right here. So if I were to take a screenshot because I wanted to remember something, I might do this. In our accelerator, we spend a deep amount of time working through each of these so that our participants had a really good sense of, I think it's really in operations that we need to evolve our business model, or I think it's the reach. We're not going to do that today. We don't have the time for it, but these are some questions you can ask about each of these dimensions just to get yourself thinking about how strong are we in these and where is an area of suspicion that we might want to concentrate on. And just as an example, reach. Which adjacent audiences face the same problems we solve right now? Right? Knowing that answer to that question and asking the question to begin with is helpful. Do we even know that, or have we thought about that? Um, Operations. Does our board offer strategic and generative perspectives? Do we proactively identify and address sources of operational friction? But these are all things that you want to have in a pretty good state in order to create an environment, a garden essentially, for growing innovation. Okay. So before we move on to some of the tactics, I do want to ask you to participate in a quick poll so Mina and I can learn a little bit about where your own needs are. And so what I'm going to do is offer you this poll on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being lowest. How would you rate your association strengths in each of those five dimensions that I just mentioned? And I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay. I think that's probably good. If anybody needs more time, name it in the comments now and I'll keep it open. Okay, let's close the poll down and see what we have. Okay. So I'm seeing that uh, there's a lot of middling responses actually. I think if I were to take a quick read at the answers right now, if you can picture a really well-behaved data set, like a good bell curve, that's how most of these operate here. We're feeling a little bit better in terms of offering value, but when we scroll down and talk about reach, so whether we're hitting the right markets, whether we're talking about revenue and operations, it's a little bit weaker. Community is feeling pretty good for folks. So that's not a surprise. And I think in our accelerator experience, what Mina and I, or at least I'll speak for myself and Mina could fill in her perspective. When I entered it, I thought the big question would be around, we don't have the right value, we don't have the right product or service to offer. We need to fundamentally change the things that we're doing today to be more fit and aligned to the marketplace. And there's some of that, but I think we heard a lot about operations and reach as well as real areas of concern. And I think those were even the top things that we heard. So Mina, I will let you talk us through some examples.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. Good to be with all of you. This is a question we get, right? Like, which are the associations that are innovating? What are they doing? McKinley has come across or worked with a number of these associations and has heard about some really innovative things that they're doing. I will walk you through a few of them. If you think in the value realm, we worked with Educause, to really help them kind of think about their partners and sponsors in a new way and to not only see them as people who would give you money or advertise with you, but as true experts who could bring value to their members. They were able to create like a really meaningful partnership, which helped them to pick up money that they were formerly leaving on the table. And it was a win-win, right? Like members benefited from that expertise, their partners were happier, and it brought more revenue to the organization. We worked with NACUBO, which is the National Association of Colleges, college and university business officers to really help them stand up a consulting product for their members, where it kind of went beyond generic education and generic offerings to working one-on-one with individual members to help them stand up successful business models and really enhance their operations. And this became this really tapped into the expertise the association could offer, but was also a very strong new revenue stream for them that really paid rich dividends. Uh, in when you think about reach, it really is in a lot of cases, as associations, we kind of think kind of within the realm of our membership, and that is a good thing. You want to think about what the value of membership is, but we seldom kind of go beyond those constraints to think about what is that bigger universe of our market. Who are our customers who may be interested in things that we do, which are beyond just kind of the membership offerings, right? And one organization that kind of really thought out of the box about this was the Association for Supply Chain Management. And they saw themselves as not just a membership organization, but decided that they wanted to really be the best educator in the supply chain space. And so they actually began to build all of their offerings around this one central concept. They really expanded, for example, their event portfolio to not just be an annual meeting, which makes it very member driven, but really started to run global events, regional events, and bring the best thought leadership and the best minds in supply chain together because they wanted to be known as the leading provider of these offerings. And another thing that they really did in terms of reach was they were offering their focus in education was on offering individual certification programs, but they also began to expand and began to see value in offering in education offerings at the corporate level, right? Like if they could contract with large companies to offer education and customized education and training for their entire supply chain workforce. Um, Again, it was kind of more bang for the buck, if you will, and they were also really able to scale their offerings, build on what they offered at the individual level to reach corporate customers, and the revenue was definitely much, much higher. So this is them thinking kind of way beyond the initial reach that they had and building up like a universe of customers. And on a very different scale, but again, thinking about expanded reach, the Pediatric Nursing Certification Board, they offer, I mean, their primary focus is credentialing programs for pediatric nurses. And they, after, I think for the first time in about 10 years, they developed a new micro credentialing offering, which was around behavioral health. And once they had developed like this program, they began to think that there were so many other related stakeholders in the healthcare space, consumers like other allied providers that could really benefit from this kind of credentialing, and that they did not just have to stick with pediatric nurses. So they decided to go pursue an expanded audience for this effort. And it was, they said, like kind of scary to think about um, going in a direction that they hadn't gone before, but they really applied that mission lens, as Patrick was saying, and said ultimately it's about being able to provide better patient care, and that is tied into our mission. So it kind of justified that broader reach and opened up avenues for their credentialing as well. Um, the Animal Hospital Association launched a cohort-based accreditation program where they used to accredit they still do accredit animal hospitals, and they said, it's not just a checklist, it's not just an audit, but what if we brought, member organizations from different areas, like even globally, to be able to participate as a cohort to kind of learn from each other, to learn together, so that they can truly, bring, strive for greater standards of excellence in their organizations. And that helped them, it made participation in accreditation much more affordable and accessible, and helped them scale their program like never before. And then we also see organizations that are just taking some big risks and making very bold bets. Um, uh, the American Hospital Association, for example, has a venture capital fund, and that they actually invest out of their reserves in uh, I guess in consumer-facing initiatives that are tied in to their mission. So reaching the patient, uh, on eh, ventures that can actually help them, invest, deliver better healthcare, but which pay a rich return that they can in turn use to fund other ventures as well. And similarly, HIMSS, the Health Information Management Society, they went a very different route, and they took all of they had like a number of data assets, which they actually were able to monetize and sell to a for-profit venture to strengthen, to get sort of like this big infusion of one-time revenue, but all of this intellectual capital that they had built up, they were able to monetize it as an association, and kind of work with what could have been competition, but be able to profit from that venture. And there are many organizations that are sort of internally from an operations perspective, um, really strengthening their muscle, if you will. Some organizations like Advamed, they take a very in-depth look at their current portfolio to see what should we stop, start, or continue doing, so that we can actually make room for something new. And that is a very useful exercise. And on the other side, there are organizations that sort of have an internal incubator, if you will, where they are constantly encouraging new ideas. And if those ideas are monetized or if they are able to be scaled, then there is like some incentive for those who actually came up with those ideas. But really making innovation a continuous a culture and a way of being at the organization is sort of one of the operational dimensions to look at. So we could talk all day about examples, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how organizations are, kind of daring to be different, if you will, to use a cliche. And then the question we often get asked is, great, it's like really nice to hear these stories. It's good to like see all of these concepts in theory, but and we know we're ready. Like we know that our traditional revenue sources are under pressure, like all of you have been saying. But where do we begin? We know we need to do something different. We know we need to do something new, but where do ideas come from? And we offer sort of this really simple framework in the accelerator that Patrick talked about. We actually worked through this process with our participants and we talked about these three buckets. The first is just improvements, right? Like we have this product, we have an education program, we have a credentialing something, we have a meeting. But what are ways in which we can add value to this existing product, right? Like we stay with the same customer base, but is there anything we can tweak, repackage, reprice, or deliver differently? So, working within your current constraints, but thinking about incremental ways to innovate. That could be a starting point. And then there's adjacencies in terms of saying it can go two ways to say, okay, these are the members, these are the people for whom our current offerings are solving certain problems. But what else do they need? What other needs do they have that they might currently be going elsewhere for, but that it's easy enough for us to meet? Or on the other hand, to also think about expanding your reach, saying our product is working really well, seems to have appeal for this audience, but who else could we reach? Like in the example of the pediatric nursing certification board saying, okay, we're catering to this audience, but a product that we've developed could also be expanded to other audiences, right? And growing your market basically. And then there is sort of transformation, diversification, like a kind of revolutionary change and thinking about um, approaching it from the mindset of everything we were doing today were to like go away. And if all of our revenue sources were to go away and we were not able to like do anything that we're doing, what might be another way that we can reach our audiences and continue sustenance? And that could lead to like some bold new ideas. So these are all just ways of thinking and ways of coming at the problem that can help you come up with the concepts, like even figure out like what is that initial idea that we can explore and dive more deeply into. So we have another question for you. If you think about kind of those three buckets of improvements, adjacencies, and diversification, what is your immediate reaction if your association's thinking about innovating? Which route seems most feasible to pursue? We'll give you a minute. Okay. That is exciting to see. As Patrick says, the middle option always seems to get like the most traction. But interesting to see that so many of you are seeing adjacencies, either more that you can do for your current customers or new markets that you can reach with your current offerings. And also healthy to see like that diversification. 28% of you think you could go that route. And improvements may not be sort of there's still some percentage of you, 21% of you that think that's the way to go, but maybe they are not, that is not sufficient to yield the kind of revenue that you might be looking for as you think about innovation. But good to see that all of this has traction. Thank you for joining that poll. So when we ran our accelerators, we went through this ideation process and really thought about what problems can we solve for either current customers or new customers. Our participating associations came up with a number of ideas which they were exploring. And one of the key things that they came up with was to really think beyond their current members and to look at sort of the universe of their prospects. And at the beginning, some of them could not even kind of put their finger on who are our prospects. What does that universe look like outside of our membership? But that was a process that we worked through, and they really were able to imagine the possibilities and think about who else they could reach and what they could offer. We also, interestingly enough, many of you pointed to membership decline, which is Patrick was talking about, sort of that strong leg of the stool that seems to be getting weaker, right? For a variety of reasons. And people were kind of appending that membership model and thinking very differently about it. Some organizations were thinking about like a more of a subscription based model in the Amazon, Netflix kind of economy and life that we live in today, and whether that might be more appealing, might offer more concrete value. Others were even thinking about making membership very like making the cost of membership so nominal and really expanding, like doubling and even tripling the reach to account for that difference in revenue, and having, especially for organizations that are doing advocacy, like having more of a reach is can be really powerful. And then there were also others that talked about how they could upsell their current customers through use of technology and kind of helping them more easily access what else the association had to offer. And that may sound like a small tweak, but when they did the math, they realized that if they actually focused on it, it could bring them huge, significant added revenues. People talked about how they could monetize their content assets and intellectual property, talked about consulting kind of products, industry facing products and partnerships, like the examples that have been mentioned already. And they were also rethinking those legs of the stool, right? Like how to really transform the meeting experience to make it more of a connection platform and to really build on that community aspect, which, as many of you said, is really strong for associations. How do we take our strengths and kind of magnify them? We had some really interesting ideas that we went deep into exploring, and we even had we did a mock Shark Tank where our participants pitched their ideas to a panel and got some really strong feedback. So you've got an idea, you've kind of been through this process, but that is just the beginning of the journey, right? Like in order to actually make the business case and to be able to get uh, kind of the approval, if you will, to dedicate the resources, the time, invest the money in at least exploring that idea and selling it, whether it be to your leadership, your board, or whatever the group of stakeholders. You have to be able to make the business case. And that always starts with thinking about it not from your association's perspective and what you can and cannot do, but starting with the customer, with the member, and saying, what is keeping them up at night? What are their problems that we as an association can solve? And what is the unique value we offer? You know, why are we uniquely positioned to help them to help them solve their problem, and why can we do it better than any competition that's out there? So if you think about it, there's invariably an answer. You know, the associations tend to have greater trust. You might have better quality content. You might have more access to experts. You might be better at building community than any of your competitors can. So really identifying what it is that positions you to solve the customer problems, and then thinking more deeply about your market, who you can reach, and finally, kind of starting with some back of the napkin calculations, but really beginning to flesh out your costs and your potential revenue. Those would all be important steps. If and you kind of if you have a concept, really thinking through all these stages and um, getting a pitch ready as if you were on Shark Tank and trying to pitch it to whoever that audience is, your board, your leadership, could be a really valuable exercise. And there is both, obviously, an art and a science to doing that. And we saw some of our accelerator participants come through and deliver some really strong pitches and get excellent ideas for what was working, what was strong, and what they should think about further fleshing out and exploring before moving forward. So if you were to pick one of your significant revenue streams currently, just to think about it from the perspective not of, hey, we've been doing this for years, works well for us. Um, Drop a note in the chat if you're able to think about whether whether it's your meeting, your credentialing program, your journal, something else that you offer. How is that program or product actually solving a problem for those who are at the receiving end for your customers? And why are you best positioned to do it? So, if anybody has thoughts to share, please drop it in the Zoom chat. I'll pause for a second, and then you can continue to share your thoughts with the group in the chat. I have a couple more things I want to run through. Okay. While we wait for you to do that, if you'd like to share, and if you're not ready to answer this question right now, something for you to think about. I see continuing education and micro credentialing. Um, yep. Direct access to decision makers on the policy advocacy side. Trusted, reliable source for day-to-day needs. Um, yep. Peer connections, real-time solutions, career development. Pretty good to think about that. So keep it coming. And just a couple more things before we wrap. Um, Another thing that is really important, if you want to kind of not let your idea remain a great idea that you talked about and made the pitch for, is really to think about a very disciplined and structured way of moving your idea forward. Um, it's known as typically as stage gating, and it kind of you can totally adapt this process to your needs, to kind of the time, talent, and treasure that you have to be able to dedicate to nurturing a new idea. But moving it through some very definite stages where you go from refining your initial idea to doing some kind of market research, competitor scan, and developing sort of a business pro forma, revenue projections, cost projections, kind of getting very concrete and getting real with it all, to then thinking about all of your product features, exactly how things will work, taking care of any sort of contracting, and being willing to pilot the program, because nothing is going to kind of go through be a success overnight, right? But being willing to say what is the minimum viable product that we can put out in the market and actually begin to test, because we can do a lot of whiteboarding, a lot of design, a lot of work in the background, but unless you put it out there, you don't know if it's working or not and how customers are receiving it. So working your way towards that, having like a clear roadmap, timelines, and then if your pilot is successful and you actually launch a new program, you still want to think about how you continuously evaluate it, and not just say, all right, it's great, like it becomes one more thing in our portfolio, but really from the get-go, building a continuous assessment process. And when you go through this process, there are sort of gates, if you will. At each stage, you can make sort of go, no go decisions or think about whether you need to go back to the drawing board because you learned something that gave you new insights. So, um, most importantly, it's you have to be intentional and disciplined about the way you go about this. And also, when you're innovating, it's often not just about the one idea and how I launch it, but it's about making and embedding innovation really in your culture. And um, we had a colleague who was part of our accelerator who really emphasized the importance of having a portfolio of ideas, right? Like if you're trying A and if you take it through these certain stages and it's not going to work as envisioned, or you have to kind of go back, um, or you've launched one and you're ready for more. Being having that ideation and that exploration happen on a continuous basis, so that if one thing doesn't work, you're able to go to another, is kind of the way to build that muscle, if you will. Okay. Um, So, lots to think about, but I would say if you are looking to innovate, don't be scared off. It may sound daunting, but it can be a good journey if you are willing to explore, to invest, and to think outside the box. But being the barriers could seem overwhelming, but being able to name them and being able to think through how you might overcome each of them is a key process. And we'd love to hear from you. Ask my colleague David to launch our poll. Maybe this is our final question for you to see what your biggest barrier to innovation is. These are all very common reasons we have heard outside of this setting. A big one being lack of time and bandwidth, lack of leadership support, a board that's resistant to change, etc. So, love to see where you'd come in. Lack of time and bandwidth, crowded portfolio, too many legacy programs are the top ones. Um, this completely resonates with what we have heard, and our advice is if you are really serious about moving your idea forward, to be able to not just say that somebody is going to nurture this in their spare time, maybe after my annual meeting, maybe when I have a little bit of downtime, I'm going to work on this idea, but really to think about how you can dedicate some resources to it, whether that be you brought somebody in on a part-time or contract basis to move from point A to point B, or even if you said, I'm going to shift something in my portfolio and make a little bit of time to actually get this off the ground. It takes, again, a lot of intentionality and it's not just going to happen in someone's spare time. So, yeah, another big barrier is tying ideas and innovation to larger organizational goals. Absolutely. You said that well, Kelly. Ultimately, as associations, we have to be able to make room for this in our strategic framework. We have to be able to tie this to our mission, or it is not going to work. But that's just some of kind of the way of thinking about how do you generate ideas, and then how do you actually move that idea forward until you go to market. It can be a long process, but I think being disciplined about it will definitely produce results. Anyway, with that, I will hand it back to Patrick.
Thank you, Mina. I'm glad that Kelly brought up that last point. One of the things that has to be true is that when you are expanding, when you are innovating, it's got to be tied to your mission. It's got to be tied to the things that you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to sprawl. You're gonna find yourself you're building confusion among the leaders in your organization, your staff, about what it is you're actually getting up to. So one of the things that we coach and encourage and guide association clients through the accelerator, I'll mention is, what are the criteria that you're using to develop those ideas? And that's what Mina was talking about a minute ago. One of those certainly has to be tying it to your organizational goals. Um, I want to thank you all for participating today. If you are interested in this topic and in particularly pursuing it more, this is what our business model accelerator looks like. Now, we've done it in the past in 3 workshops. There may be some flexibility going forward, but we have an initial phase of work where it's really about testing all of those different dimensions of your business model, how you're doing in all of those areas that we talked about before, and figuring out, if we're going to prioritize, it should be here and it should be here, but not over here. Along with that, we want you to leave the accelerator with an idea that you can practice at and that you can actually implement on. And so we leave that first workshop with a Shark Tank session where every participant pitches their ideas. They get real-time feedback and then they continue to refine them. And the third workshop is very customizable to where everyone is at. But it is about the execution, the implementation, the change management, the stage gating that Mina went through. So everybody has a different set of needs there. For some of you, it is, how do I sell this to my board? For others, it is literally, what does the MVP process look like? And that's what that third workshop is really geared to solve for you. So we hope you'll consider. The dates haven't been set yet, but we would love to hear from you and get you on the list so that we can schedule something out for you and cohort to be in this together. Thank you. And I will ask if there are any questions, and if you are interested in reaching out to us to schedule or to be on our list, please use this QR code now, which will help you do that.